Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. I am super grateful that you are here. If you are watching via YouTube or listening through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're at, I want to say thank you for being a part of the 1% community and for tuning in regularly to hear techniques and strategies and stories about, what people are doing out there, how they're living life on their terms and creating the impact and the lifestyle they want. So thank you for being here. And today I was really thinking about, what is something that no matter who I work with, I seem to be bringing up time and time again. Like this is a timeless strategy framework that I have found I use in every aspect of my life. Not only does it help me become a better father, a better husband, a better leader person, but it also helps the 8,000 plus people that I've been fortunate enough to serve and learn from. And it's really a beautiful, simple framework because it helps in so many areas. One, it helps create consistency within performance. Sometimes we can have our roller coaster months or weeks where we have really good production and then it falls off, or we are really good in our relationship and then it, kind of all falls apart. And so something like what we're going to be talking about today can help streamline that, can help it become a more consistent thing depending on whatever it is that you're wanting. It helps you progress, and progression is largely associated to happiness and purpose. And that if we feel like we're growing and getting better and experiencing more life, going deeper into ourselves, strengthening our skill sets, it's natural that we can feel a bit more pride over who we are, what we're doing, and a whole bunch of positive things can come from that. Number three, it helps us add more value to the spaces that we show up to, whether we're a leader in a company or we're a father to our kids or we're a husband to our wives and vice versa, right? It helps you as a person, as a leader, as a family member to show up and have more awareness, have better ways of looking at the world so that we're not staying stuck in disempowering thoughts, beliefs, and patterns. And then it also overall just boosts your self-awareness around the impact your actions have on those you're around and or the spaces that you're in. And so I find to this to be not only simple, but really effective. And I learned this strategy from my professor years ago, nine years ago now. And he taught me this because this is something that he was using within his clients, with his clients in the Fortune 500 companies or professional athletes. This was something that he just used routinely in feedback sessions, in casual conversations that helped produce a level of awareness uh, and insight that could be acted on. And then as a byproduct, growth could occur. So let's talk about what it is and why it's effective and how we can use it, right? So the simple framework is good, better, how. You could use this in your marriage. You could use this in your business. You could use this in your friendships. But basically, what it is, the framework is, what am I doing good? What did I do good in that board meeting? What am I doing good in this relationship? What am I doing good in that interaction with, or that sales interaction where I was talking to that person? What did I do good? Why is it important to focus on this component of good? Well, in my experience working with highly productive, goal-oriented people, they have a tendency to not accept their wins, not to acknowledge what they're growing in, how they're progressing, how they're getting better, and it's not as helpful to do that, because when you're rewarding the things that you're doing right, you're going to keep doing what you're doing right. And if you forget to acknowledge that and simply just go to what you're doing wrong because you know it needs to be fixed, which is true, but if you only focus on that, then what you can produce is a level of lack that then can be attached to your identity. So your identity then becomes, I'm not enough. And if we keep bringing this I'm not enough energy into our interactions, one, desperateness can come from that, but also the level of conviction that you can have is not going to be there, because there's always something that you're going to be able to improve, that you can improve. And if you're always focused on that lack and not also the things that you're doing well, we're missing that opportunity to keep a behavior sustainable. We want to do what gets rewarded, right? If you think about any relationship or anytime someone notices something in you and they say, hey, I really appreciate that you showed up this way, or you asked a question like that, or you said this. When they say those things, how does it make you feel? It makes you feel good. You feel seen. You feel heard. And you'll want to do more of those things, right? So when we do that to ourselves, we're saying, hey, self, I see you. I see that you're putting in the work. I see that normally you would do this, but instead you did that. That was really good. Acknowledge that. So that's why we start with good, to make sure that we're not falling into severe imposter syndromes or desperateness, but really just tracking our progress. Because the more we become aware of the things that we're doing right, and maybe even how we're doing those things, we can now share that insight with those around us, and then they can grow as well, right? Then we go to the better. What can you do better? Why is this important and helpful? Well, if there's always something that we can do better, which I believe is true, then it keeps the growth cycle always activated in us. It keeps you humble, because no matter how perfect, quote unquote, you think you just did, there's always room for refinement. And so it keeps you from getting to this point where, like, there's nothing else I could have done. I'm the best. I did this all, or I took a shit and this was terrible. It leaves space for progress to move forward um, in a positive direction, right? It keeps you curious. What could I have done better? Or it keeps you open to the feedback that someone else can give you that falls under the bucket of better. And notice how better is not what I did wrong. That's a key distinction, because most people will be like, what did you do wrong and how do you fix it? Well, most times we do what we know, and we do the best that we can with what we know. And there's room to challenge that. There's room to challenge ourselves to say, well, we could have done things differently. Yes. But when we say better, the frame that's being used there is, you came in, you did it. It is what it is. Now, how do we move forward? How do we progress? How do we get better? How do we do it a little bit differently to have more of an impact, right? And so it just keeps a more optimistic lens on it, so you're not as judgmental about yourself, and maybe even through that judgment, like, start to chip away at who you are as a person, and maybe even degrading yourself, depending on how your self-talk is. Just getting into these negative thought circles, these thought loops that are easy to get into when we're focusing on what can be better or what is in lack. And so better keeps the right frame on it, of like, there's always room to grow. Then the how is the tactical. Okay, so now that we know what we did good and we're appreciating our wins and sustaining progress and becoming more aware of how and why we're doing those things, and how it's benefiting us, and then also what we can do better the next time we find ourselves in a similar situation. What are we going to do when that next opportunity comes? It forces you to think through and future pace how you're going to show up differently. So you're priming the mind with skills and awareness for the next time you go at bat, right? To use a baseball analogy. And so it makes things tactical. It puts an implementation execution lens on the thing that you need to get better at, and ideally want to get better at, because you wouldn't use this frame if there's no desire in you to want to grow. This is a framework you use if you want to grow. And I find that growth, if you embody that, leads to such a fulfilling life, a purpose-rich life. It helps you just squeeze as much as you can out of this life. And we all know that it can be gone in any moment. It can upend in any second, right? And so to not take that for granted, but to also say, how can I be better in this moment, while also appreciating the work that I'm putting in and who I'm becoming along the way? It's a beautiful harmony between those two. So the how is like, okay, we've had our conversation. What are we going to do? And so This good, better, how framework has been extremely effective, not just for simplicity, but also for just it forces you to think. And so you can use this as in a business sense, if you're a leader and you want to have feedback sessions with your team, right? Good, better, how. I want to go over just if your team knows that your framework for your meetings is a good, better, how, they can come in with information about what they're doing good, what they could do better, and how they plan on doing it. And you can come into that session with your perspective of good, better, hows and cross-reference. Maybe you realize that you're on the same page and things are progressing in the way that you'd like. Maybe what you see and what the other person sees is not the same. And that's an opportunity to clarify and communicate even at a deeper level. You may use this if you're, in a sales interaction and you sell something or sell someone and it doesn't work out, or maybe even it does work out. Good, better, how. For me, I use this in all of my speeches, my sessions, my one-on-one sessions, and my podcast episodes. What did I do good? What can I do better? How? You can use this personally with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, and having this done, regularly, once, twice a month, depending on how frequent you think you need it. But this, again, what are we doing good? I appreciate that, at night you do this with the kids. I appreciate, and I think what you're doing really good is asking me how I'm feeling or making sure that you're available and supportive. What I think we can do better is having more talks like this, tell me more about how you're feeling about work or about this situation. Or I think we could be better about spending time with both families, equally, or as equal as we can make it. Or, fill in the blank. This is an opportunity for you in this relationship with yourself and others to figure out how you're showing up. And do you like how you're showing up? Do you like the results that are coming from your current thought process and your current actions? This is an opportunity to showcase that and say, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm also open to feedback. How can we improve? You could use this for going to the gym, for nutrition, anything, right? And so what I find to be effective here is with your goods, listing at least one thing, because there always is one thing, and that one thing could be that you just showed up, right? But acknowledge that, because some, if not most, don't show up, right? So at least one thing, up to three things. You could go more, but I find that that's like the least effective dose, right? Better, same thing, 1 to 3, right? At least one better, up to three things. You want to choose like something that is a high ROI type of better, right? And so I'll give you my example. Let's say I just had a workshop the other day, right? And I am at the end, I'm either asking someone a good, better, how, which I do very, very often. And if not, I'm going back to my hotel room, or I'm going back home and I'm going in my office and I'm writing this by myself. So you could do it both ways. But let's say I'm doing it myself. I might say, you know what, I showed up. I love the way I asked this specific question in, the middle of the training. I love the pause that I had because it seemed like it really had an effect on their understanding of the concept. And then, I loved the exercises that we did because it felt like it broke up my talking and their questioning with deeper levels of insight. Cool. What can I do better? The whole tech situation was a mess. I didn't put the mic on before I went on stage, and so there was time wasted there. My slides, I did not run through those the night before, and that caused me to be a little bit confused on the order. So got to make sure that doesn't happen next time. And then how? Taking my betters and breaking those down. I will go over my slides the night before, and I will communicate to the tech team that I will have my mic on 15 minutes before I take the stage. So it's already on, and all I got to do is flip a switch. That's an example, right? You go through whatever you feel you need this for. But again, this framework has helped just about every single person that I've ever worked with in some capacity. Good, better, how. You're priming your mind to focus on what is working. You're prompting yourself to search for what can progress and get better, and you're remaining tactical with finding ways, defining ways to work on it. Not just saying, I need to get better on it, but I'm not going to do anything about it. The how is really the commitment piece. I'm choosing to say, this is what needs to be done and how I'm going to do it. And it forces you to think through, which raises your level of awareness and your pattern recognition, and also provides the soil in which your skill can now be built. Right. So use this at work, use this at home, use this in the car when you're with yourself. Use it at any point it makes sense, but use it. And you'll find that you'll start growing consistently. You will not take things as personal, and you'll just notice that no matter how great you are, no matter how poor you think your performance is, it can always get better. And that's the point. And the game never ends. You know, the best of what they do are the people who love to play, not just love the outcomes. The outcomes are great because it's a sign that we're moving in the right direction. But really, what's the most juiciest thing is the work, doing the actions every day, developing the mastery, finding deeper levels of insight, figuring out new ways of doing it that align with you, that you're not just copying from other people, that you're learning to implement yourself. You're crafting your own style. You're walking your own path. And that's the way to own you and your life and your effort, and take responsibility for who you're choosing to be every single day. So send this podcast episode to whoever you think needs to hear this strategy. I can't wait to hear your insights and your experience in using this, and definitely keep me posted on everything you guys are up to. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work and continuing to be your